Hey guys, it's Josh, and welcome back to the Not So Bad Bachelor Pad, your favorite podcast for learning how to balance between being a functional adult and a raging dumpster fire. Let's be honest, sometimes we're all a bit of a dumpster fire. Joining me inside the Bachelor Pad today is Jonathon Hesley. Jonathon, thank you so much for making the time to be here tonight. How are we doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Joshua. I'm honored to be here. What's interesting about this period of time, particularly for your age demographic and to the guys and ladies that are listening, I think you've become so accustomed to your devices. I've heard people say they're afraid to meet people organically. Like, I'm so used to meeting someone through my device, I wouldn't even know what it would feel like to meet someone organically. And I've heard this from young women. I'm very fascinated. Like, if I don't know his bio, I don't even want to talk to the guy. That's the kind of experience that's happening out there. And that kind of saddens me that we're so fixated on our devices.
That's one thing that, unfortunately, I don't know if that's really going to change anytime soon, but I'm hoping for those people who are actually looking for a more genuine connection, they are able to spend a little less time swiping and a little more time stepping out into the real world.
Yeah.
Because I do think that's going to be the key to finding a more permanent, a more enriching relationship.
Well, it's interesting because you're at an age now, and I don't know if you want to start a family or anything along those lines. And I don't mean this minute, but at some point, then, you're going to want to start thinking about someone from the perspective of long-term rather than a short-term perspective, or at least that's my invitation for you. It's fun to have a one-night stand or a one or two experiences, but there's something more enriching when you can connect with someone from a partnership basis and build something with someone. And that's going to require approaching the process outside of just having a good time, but also thinking, is this person really a good fit for me?
And that's something that I was speaking to earlier is I feel like so many people who are in that 20-something range, and even in the 30 club, is we play a big numbers game, and it's more quantity over quality. But you're right, if you're really hoping to settle down or find a partner who is actually your person, I think we have to have a mindset shift to do more quality dates over, like I said, the quantity.
Absolutely. To some degree, online dating has created a telemarketing approach to relationships. When you get that phone call from a telemarketer and they're trying to sell you something and they're just going through a phone book list of one person after another, that's kind of what's happened with our swipe mentality. It's a numbers game, as you said. And thinking about it, the word quality, I want to invite everyone to think about it in the sense of compatibility. Is this person that I'm connecting with really aligned to my values, my lifestyle, my emotional maturity? These are the more important factors. So it's one thing to swipe on a pretty face or a good-looking guy. It's another thing to swipe on someone who matches those key elements you wrote on your profile that are your values, because you're going to have a greater connection with that person, versus just focusing on the looks.
Me and my friends play a game called Tinder.
Okay.
And I came up with it maybe a few years back when I decided, hey, I might actually want to start taking dating a little more seriously. Unfortunately for me, I was still in that superficial era where it's looks. We always want the hottest pick. I don't know if that's really going to work out. So I came up with a way, because like I said, dating apps were still hot at the time. They're still hot. People love dating apps. But this way I found was an easier way to actually make more genuine connections. And that's because we took the aspect away of seeing who you're swiping against or for. It's usually like a group of 2 or 3 of us, and we'll give the other person our phone and they'll just read off bios, or based on their profile, they'll describe the person. I also play with my family. But it's like, is this a person that you think that would be a good match for me? Is this somebody who you'd want to have Thanksgiving dinner with? And then once, right?
I want to talk to you about this one. This is fascinating to me.
Doing that, some of the people may not have been people I thought were my type, but we were having conversation, and good conversation at that.
So now I'm curious, Josh, were these male friends doing this for you, or was it male and female friends doing this for you?
Sometimes it was me and my girlfriend. Sometimes it was the guys. Sometimes it was both.
Okay.
You
Actually, you
know,
know, it'd be cool. Okay, I want to add something to this. I want you to give the phone to your mom and have her qualify everybody.
I've done this at Thanksgiving dinner one time. Like this has
Okay.
happened before. Um,
But actually, if it's okay, I'd like to borrow this and talk about this on my YouTube channel because I think this
of
is a
course.
great idea. So now you called this Tinder or Tindering. What did you call it?
Tinder, yeah, because everybody just says when they're referring to the apps, you're welcome to use it. Just make sure you give credit. Let them know where you found the idea, because I think it really is an interesting way
Well,
to adapt a modern take.
so what's interesting is if we go back in time, hundreds, if not thousands of years ago, in many cases, marriage was the predominant relationship. I mean, there was no dating 1,000 years ago. It was arranged marriages. And in many countries, arranged marriages require a mother and father to connect with the other person's mother and father, and they have a conversation before the children ever meet. But they're also vetting the family, they're vetting the lifestyle, they're doing a lot of vetting to determine if these two people are a fit. And what's fascinating is to this day, arranged marriages still seem to be far more successful than our current model of relationships, at least here in the United States. Now, I think a big reason for that is the family is a significant part of the relationship. And here, unfortunately, we have families that kind of go their separate ways. So we don't have this strong force to help us when we're struggling in our lives, to help us take care of babies, to do a lot of different things. But the idea is that you're having other people part of the decision-making process. Now, it's a little tricky on a dating app. Okay. I mean, as much fun as you and your friends and siblings are having, unfortunately, we have too much of a disposable way of treating people. I mean, sometimes you feel like you have to swipe on 100 people just to get one response. I'm not saying that's accurate, but that's what it feels like. But I like the idea. I like what you're doing. In fact, I want the reason why I want to promote it is because I think that's a great idea.
Thank you for that. And you're right. Once again, people do they're like, oh, you use it as a game. And it's not a game in the sense that there's a winner or a loser, or really the winner is usually you, for the fact that you're getting outside of your comfort zone and you're actually focusing on things that you want or like in a partner. A lot of the times, like I said, people, or I don't know how women do it, because if you look at the bios that some men draw up, or even if they have one, it's not great. I was like,
Yeah.
It's usually them and their fish, or, a really corny dad joke, which works sometimes, but I was like, you don't really learn anything about the person. And I was like, sure, that's what the first date is for, is to feel each other out. But I was like, let's do the legwork beforehand and see if we're even semi-compatible,
So, first off, I want to acknowledge that really quickly. I am very happy to hear this from your age demographic. Something I teach is discernment, meaning I believe in vetting a person before you ever physically meet them on a date. Ask the hard questions before you physically meet them. And so if you check off a few of those harder boxes, instead of 6'2", what is it that women are looking for? 6'2", $100,000, great body, that sort of thing. And I think that's a superficial way of approaching it. But if you can check off the harder boxes early, when you meet and you actually have chemistry, then you have something to work with. But if you meet someone, you have chemistry, but you're so misaligned, that can be a very problematic dynamic as well. So I'm happy to hear that you're doing that.
Thank you. This episode wasn't just supposed to be about Tinder, but we are going to spend a little bit more time talking about this. I don't know if I've talked to the audience about this, but I think it has a lot of great opportunities. Like I said, if you're just looking for a new type of relationship. And one of the most important things that I've said time and time again is don't let my friends pick out who they date by themselves, because they don't have good taste. And don't get me wrong, I'm included in that. Sometimes I'm a little blind to things. Hence, the reason why I came up with this idea is because you really value the opinion of your friends and family. They know you. They kind of know what type of person they think you should be with.
Yeah.
So I think they're good kind of benchmarkers to be like, okay, this probably is a good person for you. Or they're like, you know what? We're not even going to entertain this. Let's go to the next one.
So let's do a little experiment with you. So And this may take you a few minutes to think about this, but what do you think your top 3 values are? And I mean this outside of honesty, trustworthiness, respect, that sort of thing. But like, are you an adventurous person? Is health a big thing for you? Like, what's your big thing? Like, what's the thing that lights you up every day and, gets you motivated? Like, it'd be interesting to hear from you what that is.
So it's so hard. My top three, they kind of fluctuate.
Okay.
But here's kind of where they trend. Value one is family.
Family. Okay.
And that doesn't mean that you have to be super close to your family, or family doesn't, to me, isn't necessarily blood. It's those who you deem to be irreplaceable or that you would, drop everything for. So that's a really big thing for me. The family that I was given and the family that I choose, any given time, I would, like I said, I would drop anything for them if need be. And I'm always there. So I need a person who also has a group of people, or like I said, family, where they cherish those bonds. Another aspect is ambition. Being a podcast host, love to create things. Need somebody who they're the boss of their life. They're not complacent where they're at. They're always looking to, like I said, just be 1% better than they were yesterday.
Okay.
And then the last value that kind of back and forth is between music/creativity and then food. I'm really big into creativity. I create these episodes. I'm really into music. I used to perform. I used to write. Love going to shows. I need somebody who can share playlists or speak musically to each other. Somebody who I can cook with. I spend a lot of time in the kitchen. I mean, you guys know I'm a big boy. I love to eat. So I say that's my love language. So if I can cook with somebody, if I can cook dinner with somebody, or had a partner where I cooked, they baked, like dinner, dessert, or, we can just do that type of thing. But food is and music are both very core values. They're central parts of my life. So I would need somebody I can share one of those two things with.
So, well, first off, that's wonderful. I mean, I really appreciate what you just shared. And I was actually taking notes because I want to kind of paint the picture of the woman that might be a good fit for you. And you started off with family, but it sounds like what's really most important for you, the value, is centered around your connections, the people that you connect with, that there's a sense of loyalty, there's a sense of teamwork, there's a sense of pride and support for one another. These are all the subtext of what that connection means to you. And while someone may not have the same family orientation as yourself, they would easily fit into this dynamic with you. And you could also easily fit into, if they do have a strong support system, in them. So that's a really excellent first, and these aren't ranked, okay, but the first one you shared. What's interesting about the second one you shared, which is ambition, what I really heard from you, Josh, is that you seek somebody who's growth oriented. In other words, someone who is growing beyond themselves. You even said if they're just 1% more the next day, is that they're healing from their past. They want to improve. They want to make micro adjustments in their life, and they're open to growth, which include ambition is that desire to not just financially be more than yourself, but to really maximize who you are. So that probably on some level might be your highest value, because if someone isn't growth oriented, they're not going to fit the other things anyway. And the third thing, and this is where I made a note, you said music, food, but what you really were talking about is creativity. I made a note and I said, what you're really looking for is that romantic partner who's also your best friend. Like they have a creative mind. They have that curiosity about themselves, and not about themselves, excuse me, a curiosity about things. And what I'm really like, I was encompassing in all this. I mean, we didn't put sex on the table, but certainly you want a best friend that you can sleep with at the same time.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah. For us men, it's pretty much our top priority, or not, but. So I think going in with that kind of perception, that kind of consciousness, that kind of law of attraction approach, like really having an understanding of what it is you seek in these core values. Now, you're not going to notice it on the first swipe. Let's just be clear. But as you're getting to know them and sharing who you are, they're either coming towards you or they're pushing away. And if they're pushing away energetically, I don't mean physically, but I mean, if you can just tell they're not enthusiastic about the things you're enthusiastic about, then they're probably not aligned to who you are. And as hot as she might be, okay, and to the guys listening, you know what? Listen, it's fun to as fun as it is to have a one-nighter, it's way more exciting to have a person that you really connect with at a heart-centered level that's both your best friend and your lover at the same time.
Anybody who's been listening to the show since the beginning, I've said this time and time again, and for me, the hallmark of a great relationship is the fact that we can be bored together. Every day is not going to be an adventure. I'm spontaneous. We love a bit of spice, but sometimes I just want to sit on the couch and watch our show or read a book or just be present with each other.
Yeah.
So I think you hit the nail on the head on a couple of those topics. Connection is really big. It's really important in my life. And I feel like it's the basis of any relationship. And I don't even mean necessarily just romantic. If I can't stand to be in the same space as you more than 20 minutes, I don't really see our relationship standing the test of time.
Yeah. I saw a TikTok. It's a girlfriend saying to her boyfriend, she says, "Am I boring?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "But I'm boring too." It's interesting because what you're really talking about, because it's not boredom per se. Some level, there's this excessive need to be always doing something. Some people, they're like a shark. If they don't move, they'll drown kind of, or die, I guess. I don't know if a shark can drown, but there's something about being in a person's presence, and you even said that, Joshua, to just be with someone and actually feel fulfilled, just being with someone and not have to fill it with communication all the time, but just be in the present. You're like being chill with each other is just as gratifying as going out to a fancy dinner.
There was a song called Tuesday by Jake Scott. And pretty much just said, like, relationship is just the Tuesday, It's not a Saturday or Friday night out. It's not date night. Sometimes it's the low point of the week. It's just coming home and like finding whatever our thing is, just being together. If you don't have a thing that you and your partner can do, what I mean by that is, because I want to make sure I'm articulating this correctly, is fancy dinner out. That's an event. That's beautiful. An anniversary is a big event. You will have a lot of big events in your life. And you'll have a lot of things that are storms, but there are just sometimes between point A and point B where there's kind of nothing. It's not a really memorable day, but that's where you thrive at. And to me, that's where a relationship thrives, is how do you make it day to day until you have really big, a high or a super low.
So I'm going to interject something here, and I'm going to invite every one of the guys and gals listening right now to take note. Because what could amplify what you just said, it's that in those moments of just being with each other, this is a great opportunity to inject what my friend Dr. Sherry Myers calls the 3 A's. And that's attention, affection, and appreciation. Attention, affection, and appreciation. So attention is just being present. That's kind of what we're talking about. Affection is to make sure you touch each other, cuddle, spoon, do something where you're physically touching. And more importantly, and this is what I want to emphasize, I invite everybody to start practicing gratitude with their partner by sharing every single day 3 things you appreciate about the person. And they can be simple things like, I appreciate you being affectionate. I appreciate you being present. I appreciate the way your nose crinkles up whenever you get stressed out, whatever it is, and make a habit to each share appreciation with one another. Because if you do this enough times and you really incorporate it into your relationship, you'll be looking forward to the next thing that they might say, especially if you can put a cornucopia of different things and not always the same thing. Because men and women oftentimes don't feel appreciated in their relationship. This is where we get taken for granted. This is where we lose sexual interest, is when we stop generating just tiny bits of affection. And by doing this little daily dose every day, it's not going to be boring. It's going to be exciting to be with someone, even in the doing of nothing.
You're right, because when you are with your person, even the little things are monumental.
I think what's missing today in many cases is really listening to another person and really paying attention to what another person has to say with I call a curious mind. And so what I think and why I'm sharing this for everyone who's watching this is that, or listening to this, excuse me, is that we're oftentimes so focused on what we want to say that we don't listen to what someone is sharing with us. And there's so much gold in listening. Like you just shared something to me I can't wait to talk about tomorrow when I go and record a video, because I think it's a great idea. But learning to really listen to another person and really validating what they have to say, because there's gold in all communication.
My original degree was in linguistics.
Okay.
And everybody's like, what's that? So for those of you who don't know what linguistics is, it's a fancy way of saying grammar. It's just how language is structured, how it works, the ins and outs of it. And one principle that I think is fundamental to any relationship is it's Christ's maxim of quantity. And what that means is you need to be effective communicators. We try to use the minimum amount of language to convey a point. And then there's also the maximum of quality where we believe everything that a person says to be true, because why would they lie? You know, we need the truth to continue conversation.
Got it.
And I think those two principles, they play a lot in relationships. Or especially to the point that you were saying that we're not talking at each other. A lot of people have to hear the sound of their own voice. They wait for you to say a thing and then they respond.
Yes.
And it's not always maybe related to what you talk about, where it seems like you've been just holding that point in. So it's your turn. Even though that's a linguistic principle, I think a lot of people can enrich their relationships when they apply these things. Because when you actually listen to somebody, to talk to them, not just to talk, but to talk back to them, and you're concise about what you're saying, you know, you don't go on 5 different stories just to surmise this one point. I think you bond because you're actually invested in what I'm saying. And you become more and more passionate.
Exactly. You know, it's interesting. First off, that you were a linguistics major. I didn't know that's a fancy way of saying grammar. I thought that was kind of interesting. But you know what I got out of what you just shared? Because I think where a lot of hangups happen, and tell me if this is accurate based on your experience, where we get tripped up is context. I might say that, I don't know, this color is blue, right? And you might say, no, that's, you know, jade blue. No, that's royal blue. We see something or hear something, and our interpretation of what that means could be totally different than someone else. So communication oftentimes is confusing because how we contextualize certain words, certain ideas, certain things. And so coming back to quality, it's also being curious enough to know what's the context they mean something. Because where we get tripped up is like, oh my God, what's the debt? Is it to assume is to make an ass out of you and me?
Right. Yeah.
And so let's bring this back to relationship, because I'm a relationship coach. You know, if people spent more time actively trying to understand one another, you actually build a greater bond. You were just talking about that, you know, like you get excited because this person is invested in what you have to say instead of just responding to everything you say.
We just had an amazing appetizer. You know, we had the bread with the cinnamon butter and a great salad. But you guys are here for meat and potatoes. So me and Jonathan are going to kick it up a gear. Okay. Now, the name of the show is the Not So Bad Bachelor Pad. I should ask this at the start, but you see where we're at now. What is your current relationship status?
So my current relationship status is I'm single. I was in a significant relationship where we lived together. It ended a year ago. It wasn't my choice. We lived together and she wasn't happy living in the state of California. So she actually moved to be near family in another state. So we came close in partnership. I mean, we never fought. We didn't fight. I mean, we had maybe a couple disagreements, but we had 2 different life visions. And I thought at first we were getting close to it, but I realized that she had a vision that was in one direction and I had a vision in another direction. And in retrospect, I should have been a little bit more diligent about that in the beginning. But it was a great learning experience for me. I learned so much about myself. We both did a lot of healing from our childhood and our past relationships. So I'm back in the dating marketplace. And I'll be candid with you, it fucking sucks. And I'm a dating and relationship coach. I'm like, it's a shit show out there. And it's very frustrating. And to be candid with you, I sometimes struggle giving solid advice because our current method of connecting with people has been so watered down. A lot of it's ego and it's not heart. And so I'm encouraging a more compassionate way of approaching the process. So I gave you a long-winded answer, Joshua, but I felt like I had to defend, not that you made me defend myself, but I wanted to defend myself to the audience by giving you a little backstory. Let me just be candid with you. I want to get remarried. Like, I'm probably double the age of most of the guys listening. I believe that because we no longer look long-term, the society only seems to care about the now. I think the real disadvantage of that is by not looking at it a relationship from the end goal, people are just in and out of relationships, short-lived. And I think that's going to be the demise of real serious heart connections with another human being.
I mean, there's so much happening in today's day and age where we spoke about this last season. Traditional households aren't what they used to be anymore. The families don't look the same. Parents don't look the same. The structure is completely out the window. So I could see, quote unquote, death of the old traditional long-term situation, a long-term partnership, not being in our far future anymore.
Can I respond to that? I mean, there's something I want to say about that. So I do believe we need a death of the old patriarchal perception. Okay. And let me explain what I mean. I do believe that even though marriage might be a failed technology, as James Sexton would say, I still believe that there's value in partnership. And it doesn't mean that the man is superior and the woman must submit. In my world, I think two people, just like two lawyers that start a law firm together, we're going to be partners together. Now, you might have someone like, or let's use a doubles tennis analogy where two people, you might have a captain of the team that might take care of some of the things, but they do things as a team. They do things as a partnership. And this is the evolution that I'd like to see in the realm of relationships, that people operate as a team. They operate as a partnership. And each person might have their strengths and weaknesses, and you leverage your strengths and weaknesses. So there's a mutual exchange going on, because I think the traditional approach set women up and men up for failure because it put way too much pressure on men to be fully responsible on some level. And then it put women in a submissive role that, God forbid, they're with someone who's irresponsible. Now they're screwed. So I'm a believer that both people should have some sort of sovereignty in the relationship, some real partnership in the relationship, because I think the one up, one down traditional narrative is why we're seeing the demise. And I want to encourage a more partnership-based way relationship.
I am standing right next to you there. I don't believe there's a leader in a relationship. And this is something that was a semi-hot topic last season when we had Justin on. I'm not knocking, I'm not bashing. And I do believe there's still place, like you said, for the traditional relationship, man-woman dynamic. Man is, alpha, the alpha. I hate saying that. But I was like, traditional gender roles still have a very prominent place in today's relationship. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just there are more building blocks on top of that.
Yeah.
Buildings are a lot more advanced than they used to be. If you look at food used to be you put it over fire, you grilled it, then you ate it. Now we season things, we marinate. So it changes, but that's an aspect that I agree that we still need. But I always say I don't need somebody who's subservient. I don't need somebody can't walk hand in hand with me. I need a partner. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I want to present, no matter how that looks. For you guys listening out there, no matter what it looks like for you, I don't think there's a right or wrong way for that.
Of course, everybody's entitled to their own dynamic. I'm just here to suggest the reality is The cost of living in the United States almost requires two incomes just to support a household. So to put all the pressure on the man is going to be a challenge because it's going to, I mean, yes, 2% of the population makes over $200,000 a year, and 90% of people make less than 100 grand a year. So, and you almost need 100 plus just to survive in the United States. So by treating each other as teammates and leveraging each other's strengths and taking turns in some aspects might go outside of the traditional norm, but I think it builds a more cohesive relationship, given that, you know, we no longer live in an environment where just the cost to survive almost requires two people.
I agree. You're right. The cost in the U.S. Outlandish. I mean, you guys listening right now, you know what the housing market is like, or you just know what the economy is like. So you can probably relate to this. But I do agree with you when you put too much pressure on either person
Yes.
in the relationship, whether that's to quote unquote bring home the bacon, or whether that's to be the perfect wife, the perfect partner, or to be that emotional kind of paperweight. I was like,
Yeah.
we need to find a way to tip the scales so they're balanced. You know, one's not more important than the other, but you do have to find a way to come back to zero together.
You said the word balance. It's a yin and yang. It's not about equality. That's the wrong choice of words. I think balance is the right word through mutual exchange, mutual effort, that sort of thing. Do you have any more hard questions for me?
No, I do. We're from different generations.
Yeah.
We're both guys, but there might be some, like I said, just different perspectives that we don't share. We both work with women. We have women ask us questions.
Yeah.
And I would love to see how you feel this question. What is one way that you think that men show interest in a woman, or how could a woman know if a man is truly interested in her?
You know, it's funny. I hear this question. So first off, we have to differentiate how these two people are connecting. You see the barista at the coffee shop, you're attracted to them, you know, you make an overture of wanting to get their number. That's an obvious overture of interest. But I think what you're really going is beyond this dynamic. You actually are engaging with somebody and you want to express interest. I think we need to go back to an old paradigm and just simply say the words, I like you. Like is a very powerful word. Like, I like you. Now, a lot of people hear that and they think friend zone, right? Friend zone. But I want you to, you know, I have two children and I love my children. I mean, I love them. But you know what? I also like them. I mean, they're adults, by the way, and they could be listening to your podcast. But I like who they are as people. And I say the words to them, I like you. I think like represents a lot of different words. It represents care. It represents respect. It represents admiration. It's a powerful word. And if you say to someone, I go, I really like you. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean, and you can also preface, and I want to fuck your brains out. So we can add the sexual piece in there. But that denotes interest. And I think back when I was growing up, we'd write notes and say, I like so-and-so, and hand them the note. You know, like, I almost think we should go back to those words, I like you.
I love that analogy. And you're right, we don't say it enough. For this to be the age of technology, the age of information, we're not really good at sharing it. Let's be honest. Men operate under this assumption. I'm not going to generalize. I'm just going to speak for my area and myself and some of the people I'm with. We weren't always the best at communicating how we feel. And women, you guys think you must be Jedis or something because the mind games completely out of hand nowadays. I think you're right. We should go back, simplify it. I like you. Not you didn't get these 17 hints I left, or you know, just trying to like pick something up, break it, you know, lift heavy things. No. Hey, you're gorgeous. I fucking like you. You know what? I enjoy talking to you. I would love to do it more. It doesn't have to mean, hey, let's just be best friends. I was like, no, that really should be enough to be like, let's just create a relationship. Where if that becomes something intimate or romantic, so be it. If that is us just being friends, so be it. But let's just start back at that base level of communication and let people know how much we cherish or enjoy them.
I'll tell you a quick story. I was, and what was the impetus for sharing this with you? It was some years ago. Was at a workshop. It was a woman's workshop. I was one of the few men, and I was sitting at a table of 6 women, and you're supposed to pair up with someone. I paired up with this woman, and we worked on this assignment for about an hour, and we just started to hit it off. It was one of those, I couldn't believe how we were just in sync in our communication. And I wrote on a piece of paper, "I like you," and handed it to her. And we briefly dated. I mean, there was a logistics that made it difficult for us to be in relationship with each other. But to this day, I still have that little piece of paper. It's in my office desk. I mean, I wrote down, "I like you." And again, I think I'm inviting everyone to try it. Write it down on a piece of paper, hand it to someone. It's an old-fashioned way, but I think it can speak volumes.
You're right. A lot of guys, especially, we're very tactile. We like to touch things. We like to watch it. That's how we learn. That's how we sometimes communicate. We fix things. That's how we show our appreciation or admiration for somebody.
Yeah.
So, guys, I do challenge everybody. If you are afraid or you're struggling to make that first move with somebody who you actually have interest in, write a note. "I like you."
Yes.
I mean, if you need it to be, yeah. I was like, if you need it to be anonymous, make it anonymous. But like, if you genuinely just don't know what to say and you're okay putting yourself out there, hand them a note.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a whole big to do, something small.
I tell you what, I hope this sparks a whole trend. Write down on a piece of paper, "I like you," hand it to a person, because that actually has real meaning behind it. Don't do it on your smartphones, okay? Let's go back to some old-fashioned way of doing things and see what happens.
Text does not cut it. You're right.
Yeah.
I love this conversation that we are having right now because it goes to show that there's been this stereotype since forever that men are afraid of commitment or they have trouble committing. They don't want to commit. I think that's baloney. I think that, like I said, we're from different generations, different parts of the world, but you said you want to get remarried. You're okay with saying, "I like you," and then letting somebody know that you generally have interest. I'm the same way. Either we're two weirdos that just happen to collide today, or men really just got a bad rep, and we actually do enjoy commitment, being part of a more definite and regular relationship.
Well, in all fairness, though, to men and to the perception, I think commitment used to mean, "I will take care of you." That's what commitment used to mean, okay? The challenge is a lot of men don't feel like they can take care of someone. Coming back to what I was talking about, the challenges financially. And because of that, there's a lot of fear for a lot of men to commit. Because on some level, commitment means I'm going to take care of you, and vice versa, too. I think some men get a bad rap, but at the same time, men, once they do commit, they usually nest in a relationship, N-E-S-T. They nest, just like a bird nest. In other words, they usually don't go anywhere. Men, usually once they're in, the challenge right now for men is there's this fear about that provider protector component, and makes a lot of men gun shy. And rightfully so, because it is scary to feel like I have to take care of someone fully. This is where honest communication, particularly about money, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, Josh, is that 50% of divorces cite money as the reason why they get divorced. So having conversations about these things can alleviate a lot of stress and build trust with another person if we have these deeper conversations sooner rather than later.
Going back to something we talked about at the very beginning of the episode is have those harder conversations early. Yeah. Time is a precious thing. We never know how much of it we have, and nobody likes to waste it. We spend a lot of our time working nowadays, so forming quality bonds that will last and are pretty much they're investments. Investing in the right people is really important. So if you can tell that this is going to be a bad investment, or you haven't done your research to see if this is a good investment, you're just wasting time, and it's something we don't have thought of. I know it. I mean, you said it too earlier, and guys who are in your 20-somethings, early 30s, we know the dating market is wild. It's crazy. It's like a jungle sometimes.
Yeah.
Can you tell me, since you've been back on the market, what has been one of the biggest struggles that you've encountered in this dating space?
So, since I'm no longer led by my penis, and why I said that is it was a man in the past that focused on chemistry and sex as the driving force, and I really want partnership with someone. I think what frustrates me most is that, and this is just me, I'm not speaking for everyone, I can only speak for myself here, is I like depth of conversation. I think you can tell the way I communicate, my perceptions, just even in this brief conversation. I like somebody with depth, and I'm just tired of how's your day going? Like, I am so over that as a leading question, you know, and maybe I'm being a little bit, in my perception around that, but that's probably my biggest frustration is just start with something a little bit of depth. I put in, even on my Bumble and Hinge profile, I wrote some things of depth that you could go, wow, that's interesting. And for someone not to go, wow, that's interesting, and say, wow, that's interesting, disappoints me, because when I read someone's profile, I go, wow, that's interesting. Let me find out about that instead of how's your day going, because I want to talk about atoms, death, alien, sex, magic, the meaning of faraway galaxies, the meaning of life, what keeps you up at night. There's a meme called I hate small talk. That's what I'm reciting right now. That's what my heart yearns for, my soul yearns for, is someone that can just lead with a little bit of depth.
Well, Jonathon, thank you so much for sharing some of your wisdom today. Just chatting, giving me a new perspective, and letting the audience know that no matter when you are on your dating journey, whether it's in your teens, in your 30s, or beyond that, it's hard. But if you take the time, it was like you might actually have a good time and find a person who you could potentially see yourself spending the rest of your life with.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Josh, this has been a treat. You're a great interviewer. I think you're a really upstanding guy. I just want to give you your props as well. Go find that woman that connects with you, has growth oriented, who's creative, is your best friend and lover at the same time. So I'm going to set that intention that you find that woman out there. Okay.
I appreciate that. But before we get out of here, I got to give you a floor. Jonathon, where can the audience connect with you?
Okay, I'm going to assume you'll put a link somewhere here, but my name is listed here, Jonathon Asley. Go to my YouTube channel. I record like 4 live videos a week. I do pre-recorded, I do shorts. I talk about human pair bonding in a much more, not the traditional sense. I'm very contrarian. So just go to my YouTube channel. And if you want to check out my work, you can go to my website, which is just basically myname.com. So that's the easiest place. And then you can find me on Instagram and other social media.
Alrighty, guys, before you get out of here, make sure you like this episode, share it with a friend, let somebody know you like them. And to let me know that you made it all the way to the end of the episode, if you're watching on YouTube, comment an emoji or just like a little symbol of your favorite dating app. Okay? And then I will see all you amazing bachelors and bachelorettes next week for another episode of the Not So Bad Bachelor Pad.